We are ECS Outdoors, East Central Saskatchewan's guide to faith, family, farm, and a whole lot of fun. Alright, hello everybody. It's Dan Johnson here from ECS Outdoors. I'm excited to be doing podcast number 11 with you, titled Connections. And I just wanted to do a little bit of a shout out here to our new retailers and distributor. Shout out to Eagle Firearms in Tisdale, Saskatchewan, Paradise Hill Ranch and Western Wear in Paradise Hill, Saskatchewan, and Wildside Outdoors in Lloydminster, and Hunt's Hunting Supplies in Gull Lake, Saskatchewan. So yeah, shout out right there. Just fired off right there, right now. Gotta make sure everyone knows we're excited to have connected with these wonderful people on the western side of Saskatchewan who are going to be retailing Tween Lakes Feed Solutions, Deer Nutrition. And want to also just say mandates in Saskatchewan are off. Very, very excited about that. My wife and I went out for supper last night without masks. It felt really weird. Not gonna lie, we have conditioned ourselves to wear these silly masks, and it's gonna take some time, I think, before we feel 100% normal. And that's a good thing, because normal is not wearing masks, in my opinion. So yeah, just want to quickly go over God's Word this morning. I want to talk about the connections that we made, and this connection that I'm going to talk about in God's Word is the relationship between David and Jonathan, taken from the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 20, verse 1 to 42, and just want to talk about that relation. I'm not going to read at the moment from God's Word because, man, it's heavy. It's a lot of reading there, so I'm going to talk about that. So the story goes that King David was anointed to become the new king, and Saul was the king at the time, and he wanted his son Jonathan to become the king after his time was done. But God had other plans. Saul wasn't really doing what God wanted him to do, so he had the prophet Samuel anoint David to become the next king, which was, in those times, the prophets were the dudes that were in charge of who would become king. And so David was anointed to be king, but Jonathan was the inherent king, and Jonathan and David actually were best friends. And so Jonathan could not believe that his dad would put his best friend to death, and so Jonathan kind of tested his dad and found out, sure enough, my dad wants to kill David. And so Jonathan, rather than seeking the throne, honored David and protected David from getting killed because they were best friends, and that was the connection that they had built up, and it was a long-lasting friendship. And so I just thought that was fitting. It was fitting to what a real friendship is, and what a real connection with someone is you choose your own self over you choose your friend over yourself, and I think that was what I wanted to get across with this story here. And that's kind of how ECS Outdoors and Tween Lakes Feed Solutions is trying to build that connection with people. Is we want to connect with you guys and build friendships rather than just business relationships. I love the idea of the trip that we took was an awesome trip. We made fantastic connections, but furthermore, the outdoor industry, I'm going to be completely honest with you, the outdoor industry is made up of people that really care about each other and really care about wildlife and the common connection that's involved with that. And so yeah, just thought I would share that little bit with you guys. I want to talk a little bit more about the idea of the face masks being removed, and how when my wife and I went for supper the other night, last night actually, we weren't wearing masks, and neither were the staff at the restaurant that we were at, and we could see each other's smiles. And it was a real eye-opener to what we'd been missing over the last couple of years. When you go to, some of the bigger box stores out there, there's a sense of aloneness, I think, that you can almost feel with people hiding in the mask, and that's not good. That's not the way God intended our society to be. And so, really refreshing to be able to do that. And I don't want this podcast to be a long outgoing podcast where we just ramble on, but I thought I wanted to share with you guys about this experience that we're seeing now. Let's hope that we don't ever go back in our lifetime. I mean, these things happen. We had Spanish flu 100 years ago, and I mean, it's just, we live on a planet that has imperfections and diseases and stuff like that, so nothing is guaranteed. But let's remember that we need to be able to connect with each other on a more personal level, when we see each other's faces and we read each other's emotion through our faces. That's a pretty important thing, in my opinion. So let's just keep that in mind. Big notes coming up. Tween Lakes Feed Solutions is going to be at the Parkland Outdoor Show in Yorkton in 1 month time. It is, what is it today? March 3rd. So April 2nd is when it starts at Yorkton, the Parkland Outdoor Show in Yorkton. We're going to be setting up a booth there to connect with people. We're going to be right next to our partner in crime, Mark McNay, and The Real Deal, his hunting show, and going to be just having a really great time connecting with other people in the outdoor industry once again. We're going to be working the booth there. We'll be selling a few of our deer nutrition products there, and just educating people on the value of supplemental feeding. As long as it's legal to supplement feed and you're doing it the right way, there's ways of doing it to reduce the risk of some of the diseases that are connected, that are definitely of concern, with chronic wasting disease and stuff like that. You do not want to feed the deer in the same place over and over again. You don't want your deer to be in a big wad where you're feeding them, because then they slobber on the same stuff over and over again. So there's some ways to do it to reduce the risk of chronic waste disease and other issues. A crazy story I've heard that, I mean, it's maybe not so crazy anymore, but it's well known that chronic wasting disease, or COVID of all things, COVID has been identified in lots of deer throughout the United States, and I'm not sure if they've done a study here in Canada, but those are transmission ways of spreading. Wherever deer are grazing together, there's always going to be risk of transmission of any disease, whether it's in a food plot or whether it's in supplement feeding stations, stuff like that. There's always a risk of that. But deer in general are group feeders. They feed together. So come springtime, come fall time, deer tend to migrate together, and then once it's time for does to have their babies, then they start splitting away from the herd, and they kind of live an independent lifestyle in summer, and then come fall time they start to come back together and to maximize their feeding locations, because once the frost hits, then there's better feeding areas for them. And that's where we talk about supplement feeding once the weather gets cold. Once, especially this year with the snow getting deep, it is important to make sure that your deer in your countryside have ample opportunity to feed, also have an excellent area to bed, and to have, you know, a place where they can move freely with deep snow. I know in the forest there, they cut trails in the deep snow and they pack those trails, and you know, that's important to be able to have cover for them to get away from predators and different things like that. So you know, that's the kind of stuff that we're going to talk to you guys about when we're at the trade show. Also introduce you guys to Tween Lakes Farm and what that means to our operation. I'm hoping that some of my sons will help out with the trade show, so you guys can meet the boys that make up part of the team that we package together with, and also just to get to know that we're just like Mark's TV show, The Real Deal. We're the real deal. I mean, there's nothing special about us. We're a family of faith, but we're also a family of just, we're normal. I hope we're normal. I mean, maybe you guys will think these guys are weird, but you know what? I guess that's what our normal is then. Everyone's normal is different. Is that how we're going to look at it? Sure. We'll go with that. So that's all I'm going to do on this podcast today, guys. I am so excited to connect with you guys at the Parkland Outdoor Show. I'm excited to continue to do our adventures and connect with other customers. I am hoping to do a trip out into Manitoba and to connect with retailers out there. And just stay tuned for 2022, 2023. We're going to hopefully do a few more trade shows, looking into trade shows in Alberta and trade shows in Ontario and some in Manitoba. As long as I've got time to do them and we continue to grow our footprint, we're going to be out and about, meeting with people and growing our business and growing this love that we have with the outdoor industry and outdoor community. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast, short and sweet, and over and